Hi, thanks for joining to watch this video to learn more about how to complete an online application for the Inman Crossing and St. James Place Condominium First-Time Homebuyer Lottery. In this video, we're going to cover how to create an account to utilize our online application system, Viewpoint. We're going to go through the process of filling out the application, how to save and exit the application, how to upload documentation, which is necessary in order to complete the application, and then how to submit your application once it's fully complete. For this online application, we're using a city service called Viewpoint. To create the online application, the first step you'll need to do is sign up for Viewpoint if you haven't already used it before. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a sign up button. So you can click on that, and then you'll have two options. One is to create a Viewpoint ID, or if you already have a Viewpoint ID, to log in. So in this case, we're going to sign up, which is the blue button on the left. I'm going to put in my email address, and I'm going to create a secure password. Once you've created your login and you're signed into Viewpoint, you can click on the CDD Affordable Housing button to then select the online lottery application and start your application. You will need to enter in your information on the first screen to then proceed to the next step. Once you've confirmed your contact information and you proceed to the next step, you'll be able to select which property through this lottery opportunity that you want to complete your application for. So there's two locations. There's Inman Crossing and St. James Place. They're two different buildings. You can select one of the buildings, or you can select both of the buildings through this application. The important thing to note is that if you are interested in a 3-bedroom unit, only St. James Place has 3-bedroom availability. There's one 3-bedroom unit at that property. But if you're looking at the 1-bedroom or the 2-bedroom size units, there are available units at both properties. So you can complete one application for one or both properties, depending on your interest. In this example, I'm interested in applying for a 2-bedroom condo at both Inman Crossing and St. James Place. So I'm going to select this first option. And then here I'll be prompted to select the bedroom size unit that I'm interested in. I do want to just mention that there are eligibility criteria for bedroom size units, so I encourage you to read through our occupancy standards to understand which bedroom size unit you'll be eligible for based on your household composition. At any point in the application process, you're able to save your work and go back to the application to finish it at a later time. So if after filling out a lot of information, you need to take a break, you're not ready to complete and go to the next step, what you can do is at the top of every page on the right-hand side, hit the button that says Save, Draft, and Exit. That's going to save all of the work that you've done until this point. If you've saved your application and you've been logged out of Viewpoint, you can go back into your application by signing in. So you click the login button because you already have a Viewpoint credentials. You don't need to sign up. You have a login ID. You're going to log in using your information. So I'm already saved into the system, and I'm going to go to my account, which you can find on the top right-hand side of the screen. This is going to take you to your user dashboard, and you can see all of your applications that you have active at this time. And so I have my lottery application. I want to continue filling it out. So it will always start at page 1, but I can quickly hit the next buttons to go where I left off and then proceed with my work. Once you've completed your application, you're going to get to the last page, which is called Attachments. It's on this page that you'll be asked to upload a number of documents to support the information about your household. You won't be able to submit the application, hit this next button, until all documents have been uploaded. Because there's a lot of documentation that you're going to be asked to upload with your application, if you don't have it all ready, this may be a good time to save your draft and exit. We do have an application checklist, which you can access from our landing page. It's right here. It's the checklist of documentation to submit with your online application. You can click that and take a look. You could download this, you can print this document. It shows you the information that you will need to upload on that last page of the online application. So again, this might be a good time to save your draft so you can assemble all the documentation and then upload it when you're ready to go. If you have some of your documentation you want to upload it at this point, you can do that. You can upload some of it, save your draft, and upload the rest at a later date. When you're preparing to upload your documentation, there are a few things to keep in mind to ensure that staff are able to read and comprehend the information that you're submitting. So here is a sample utility bill, and let me make sure. And as you can see here, I'll zoom in. It's a JPEG format, and that's acceptable. You can upload JPEGs into Viewpoint, but we want to make sure that there's essential information included in the documents. So here you can see that there's a statement date. It matches the amount due date over on the right-hand side. There's also the customer's name, the services provided to this person. That should be your name or someone in your household when you're providing that information. There's also a service address. So when we're reviewing this bill, we can see all of the information and we can match this information to the person's application. Now here's a sample utility bill. This is someone that took a screenshot from their phone and they're uploading this document. Unfortunately, in this case, the information is very blurry and hard to read, and so it's not going to provide us staff with the information necessarily to verify that this is yours. Here's an example of another document. This is a bank statement, and in this case, this is a PDF. It looks like this applicant would have downloaded their bank statement from their bank account and then uploaded it into Viewpoint. What we're looking at here is we see that there's a logo. We know the name of the financial institution where this came from. We can see that this is a monthly bank statement. We have a date on the right-hand side. This is a September to October bank statement. We have the account holder and their address. So this is the information we're looking to match with the applicant. And then we also see this is a 4-page statement. We also can see here that this is a 4-page statement. So we know in this case this is complete. The information is readable, it matches the applicant's information, and this is an easy to read and comprehend document. Here's an example of a bank statement that we would not be able to review. So in this case, an applicant has submitted a document, but it's a partial bank statement. We don't have a name associated with it at the top. We don't know if this is a 1-month bank statement or if it's for an entire quarter. We don't have an address associated with the account holder. And then at the bottom, it says continued, but there are no additional pages or images of this document to see the complete statement. This is partial and not sufficient for the purposes of this application and the documentation that we're looking for. Going back to the attachments page, I'm going to quickly demonstrate how to upload documentation. So what you'll do is you go to the category that you want to upload your documentation with. So for here, this is the asset documentation. I'm going to upload my bank statement. So here's my first bank statement that I want to upload. Because I have multiple bank statements and the system only allows one slot that is designated for the asset documentation, I'm actually going to go to the bottom where it says add attachment, and I can upload my January 2022 bank statement. I can make a description, but in this case the title's self-explanatory, and I can add another one here as well, and this is my December 2021 bank statement. Again, I'm just going to click the upload button. So you can continue to add attachments if you need to provide other documentation and you don't see a designated spot for it. I'm also going to upload my utility bill, so I'll click that button. I'll go to the folder where I have my sample utility bill saved, and again, I'll click upload. As a reminder, you won't be able to proceed to the next step until you have documents uploaded for each of the designated categories with your application. After you've uploaded all of your documents to the application, you're now able to go to the next step where you can confirm that the information you've presented in your application is correct. You also have the opportunity to review it and make any last-minute changes. So we'll scroll through here and see if it all looks accurate. Again, you get to review all of the information that you've provided so far. And in this case, Viewpoint has identified that I actually forgot to change some of the information. So I forgot to put in the birth date of the second household member, my co-applicant. So I'm going to hit the edit button to return to that page and make that change right now. I can then confirm, and I'll be taken again to the last page of the application. So now that we know that everything is correct, we'll go to the very bottom where we'll hit confirm and submit. After you've submitted your application, you'll see a screen that says review for completeness. This is the first step in the application review process. So this is just a status update to let you know that there will be a staff person reviewing your application and reaching out if there are any questions. At the same time that you submit your application, you'll also receive a straightforward but simple confirmation email to your inbox that says that your application has been successfully submitted. If you click the View Details button in that email, you'll be taken to your Viewpoint dashboard where you can see that your application is active, it's been submitted into the system, and you can get status updates here on the left-hand side of your application submission when it goes through different stages of the review process. So anytime there's a letter or any information for you to review in the dashboard, you will receive an email prompt to your email address that you've included with your application. Now that we've gone through the online application process, I just want to point out a few quick reminders. The first is that with one application, you can apply to both Inman Crossing and St. James Place. Or if you're only interested in one of those buildings, you can select that at the very beginning of the application process. You only need to apply once, even if you want to be considered for both properties. Between now and the application deadline, which is March 4th at noon, you can work on your application, save your draft, and return to it at any point. In order to fully complete and submit your application, you will need to upload all documents through Viewpoint, including a pre-approval letter for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. And then once you submit your application, all the communication between yourself and staff that will be reviewing your application will take place through the online application portal. You will be prompted by email if there's any messages waiting for you in the Viewpoint application portal, so please make sure that there are no emails going to your spam box, because that's how you'll be alerted that there are messages waiting for you. And if you want any additional information, I encourage you to check out the website dedicated to this first-time homebuyer lottery opportunity at cambridgema.gov/homebuyerlottery, and you can email or call us at any point about the application process. Thanks and have a great day.